who is going to introduce our keynote. Let's welcome Dr. Frank Walton.
Hey friends, one of the many benefits of being an Adlerian is that you get to associate with so many fundamentally decent people. And our speaker, Jim Holder, is one of them. He's a good man. He's a good-humored man. He's a lot of accomplishments. One of them I'll mention is he's past chair of the National Certification Commission for Addiction Professionals. He is a member of the International Adlerian Summer Institute, which moves around the world to a different country every year. He's established himself as an expert in addictions in our state, nationally, and internationally. He is in addition to being a practitioner, he's an author and a researcher, and he's just a very decent contributor to our work. Jim Holder, it's a pleasure to have you here, Jim.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm glad he introduced me because wearing a suit, I know a lot of you have never seen me in a suit. You would recognize it. John walked right by me before he said hello. So, let me see how much time we've got. We did pretty good. Announcements were much. So I've got two presentations here. One was for 90 minutes, and then one's going to be, then there's another one shorter. This morning I thought, oh no, this isn't 90 minutes, this is an hour. So let me just start off. So one of the things for me is, and from an Adlerian perspective, is when you look at it, you look at how a person addicts themselves. And once you understand how they addict themselves, and you're working with a client, then they begin to know how to recover themselves. Because what happens is they've given up a part of themselves a lot of times. When an individual decides to choose their line of conduct or personality, as some people would say, then the moment you choose one line of conduct, you may give up the other one. So if I choose to be shy and reserved, then I give up being outgoing. And this doesn't have to happen, but it has a tendency. But you know how you've all got siblings. You know how all of you are just exactly alike? You ever noticed that? My sister made straight A's, so I could have competed with her and made straight A's, but no, I chose to compete a different way. So I chose to make F's, D's, and C's. So one of the things is to see what you've given up. Let me find my map. So when you think about all of this, it's really about, superiority and inferiority. And so addiction helps people find a way to move, to at least make themselves feel like they're moving to a point of superiority in some ways. Can you hear me okay?
Turn it up a little bit.
Turned up a little bit. I think that means I stand closer. Holding my hand. Okay. Good. Is this better?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay. When I do this, though, it makes me think I want to walk around and swing this around on TV. So when you think of superiority, even Adlerians can slip into this, where we have a tendency to want to move into the superiority too. Last night I happened to be near Frank and John and Paul, and they were sitting at a table talking. And there was a point where John said, they were talking about early recollections, and John said, I have a very early recollection. And he said, I remember my first birthday, and the birthday cake and how wonderful it was. And then Paul said, well, I can beat that. I remember being baptized, and I remember the water being sprinkled on my forehead. Then Frank said, well, fellas, I remember going to a hotel with my daddy and coming home with my mom. I got permission from Frank to say that. He just didn't know he was going to be part of it. Here we go. So, Dreiker's talked about striving for superiority as a mistaken idea about having a place or status. And that's all we're talking about. So when we do want to find our place in society, if you think about addictions, when you think of the place we've chosen is usually one of inferiority. And some research I did years ago, the first study I did, 84% of the people with addictions had negative first memories. And so obviously they had belief systems that would lead to something around negative feelings. And then later we did research on it, and believe it or not, there was a group that actually had 91% of the individuals had negative first memories. And those happened to be recovered alcohol and drug counselors. We also, in that study, we worked with people that were in a psych unit and had dual diagnosis, and 90% of that group had negative first memories or recollections. And 27% of the individuals who had no addictions of any type, including food and all this stuff, all that stuff, anything we can put in our mouth or body, 27% had negative first memories. So it's significantly. So if you think about it, that leaves just a large number of people who have really beliefs that are more in a negative line that really influence their lives and how they are going to interact in the world. Well, then there's the genetic piece of this whole thing. Where you look at the neurochemistry in our brain, and if you think about it, then take me. I come from an addicted family, so that means more than likely the children of alcoholics have a tendency to have lower GABA receptors. GABA is a neurochemical that helps us relax. And so if GABA helps us to relax, then if you have fewer GABA receptors, then how would you naturally be? Tense, anxious, whatever. So there's a reason I told you this. If you look closely, you can see me how nervous I am. So I have no trouble believing this may be true, that I may have fewer GABA receptors. However, if you go back to what Adler was looking at, it's not so much what we inherit, it's what we do with it. And so that's what's important here. Because you can, no matter what your genetics are, it's what you do with your genetics is what's important. And there was a time in my life before I got in therapy that I chose to allow my genetics and myself to influence me in rather negative ways. Like I said, I competed with my sister in an opposite direction. But once I got into therapy, that began to change, and I realized how foolish I'd been, and that it really isn't really a good thing, an idea, to compete in such a negative way. So I began to change that. And then the result is I'm up here in front of y'all today. Sometimes you don't know how things are going to happen. Adler also talks about all behavior has a purpose. And I take it just a step further. So what I do is I look at it as all behavior has a positive purpose. And in addiction, that's real important because there can be so much shame around addiction that the more addicted a person becomes, the more shameful they feel, and a cycle just gets started. So it really becomes hard to get out of it. But if you start looking for the positive purpose or the positive intent, then what happens is you reframe the whole idea. Because when I'm working with the clients and I ask them what their positive intent is in their behavior, or their positive intent is in their substance use, at first it's like a shot goes over their face because they go, what? And it's really difficult for them to think about it because they are looking at it from a negative point of view. And so just that one simple reframe begins to change the way a person views life, because for the first time they're having to look at the positive aspects of the reason they use substances. Let me flip a page. Now, what's interesting is the world's beginning to change. Gitlow is the past president of the American Society of Addiction Medicine. So here's a gentleman that sees addiction in a different light, much closer to the way we see it. He sees it as a complicated neurobiological process that has an underpinning that's psychological. An underpinning that's psychological. That's amazing, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about holism. When Adlerians look, or Adler looks, we're looking at the holistic way a person goes through the world. And so we do need to look at genetics. However, what's more important is we need to look at that underpinning. And the nice thing about underpinnings, I was thinking about them this morning, is sometimes you see the underpinning and sometimes you don't. And so that could be the things we admit to ourselves, and that could be the things we don't admit to ourselves, or the subconscious. I'm moving so fast, I can't even turn pages fast enough. A part that I said, wow, times have changed over the years. Because the word cowardly catches me. I go, whoo! I wonder the reason Adler didn't say discouraged. And so the times have changed, and we were watching a film by Adler not long ago that Frank had, and in the film, after the film was over, we discussed, like, whoo, he was really hard-hitting. And then I think back, my first training and first year was Gestalt therapy, and Fritz Perls was pretty hard-hitting, you know. And so when you look back at some of the, think about some of the other therapies, the therapists really were hard-hitting. So we've become a little bit softer in life. Therapists are a lot more gentle than they used to be. And so the thing that I think about now is that we do need to use the word discouraged. And so what happens is an individual is looking for the relief. Adler looked at the relief. So we look at it the same way, just we use a little bit more gentle words now than we used to. And so going back to what I talked about, a line of conduct, if you think about a person who has a line of conduct with a very nervous, anxious, fear-based, that kind of thing, if that's the line of conduct, then of course they want relief from this. I mean, who wants to walk around feeling fearful all the time, scared to relate to people, scared to be social? And so one of the things is to understand what they're looking for relief from is really important. So part of what we'll do in a few minutes is begin to look at this. And so what I think about is that a person's looking for ways to empower them to take action. Adlerians have always talked about, and Adler talked about action, that you look to see which way a person's feet are going. And when you look at the early recollections, the way I've just talked about them, you can see that sometimes the feet have stopped. And if anything, they may be backing up. So one of the things that I want to do is always help a person start to have a plan of how to start to take action. And with that, thinking about how a person does that, what I'd like to do is to make sure we've got plenty of time. Like I said, I can go on, but I want to stop here. And I'm going to have my volunteer come up, and Kevin's right here. And Kevin volunteered, came all the way from Hartsville to volunteer. We never met until a few minutes ago in front of the door out here. And so Kevin and I know very little about each other. He knows I'm a counselor, and somebody said, yeah, go do this with Jim. And then I know that one time he was a professional golfer. And then I'll let him tell you the rest.